Now, we thought we would start the conference off with a bit of a surprise. And as such, apologies, Rob, we are very excited to have with us Well Health's founder, chairman, and CEO, Hamed Shahbazi, whose recognized leadership in Canadian technology and his long history with Rob Goring make for a meaningful, and we are hoping, a surprise introduction. Hamed, welcome, and our thanks for kicking things off and introducing Rob.
Thanks, Rob Goff. That's awesome. Yeah, I love this idea. This is, I think, the first time I've been invited to introduce someone else. I feel like I'm at the Oscars, but I'm very pleased to introduce a wonderful serial entrepreneur that I've had the pleasure of working with before, Rob Goring, who's also a friend. And Rob and I worked together when he was chief marketing officer back in TO Networks and the last business that I operated. And maybe some of you were shareholders. We had a great outcome, and Rob did a great job. And obviously, I've followed Rob's career and his achievements and successes, and it's great to see him tackle a very important problem in bringing together a whole bunch of data and use AI to make sense of it to help companies safer. So it's a delight to see that, and so definitely rooting on Paul, Rob, and just wishing. It's interesting because we have a common friend called Paul, and in any event, very, very pleased to introduce Rob Goring for his presentation today.
Thank you very much, Hamed. That was a wonderful surprise. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much, everyone. Again, really appreciate it. Thanks again, Hamed. That was great. As Rob Goff kind of mentioned, what I'm going to be talking about today is a little bit more higher level on AI, some general trends and things. Just by way of background, I have been doing work in the technology industry for about 25 years now, building and operating companies across a wide variety of sectors. As Hamed mentioned, spent a lot of time at TO in fintech. I've worked across marketing tech in the last 5+ years, very deep in AI. I sit in the board of a couple of companies and an advisor to a number. But I also do a lot of work out here in British Columbia with the BC Tech Association. I have been basically their AI person for the last 4 years. I founded and stood up the AI Chief Executive Council, where I've had the pleasure of overseeing 20 to 25 different AI companies. I also helped the BC Tech Association design, build, and launch an AI accelerator called Hyperscale AI that we had funded by the Scale AI Supercluster out of Montreal, which was fantastic. Again, we sort of put about 20, 25 companies through that. So I think part of the point here today was really to kind of walk through a series of kind of trends happening in AI, really sort of set the stage at a baseline and talk through things. Very quickly, I'm going to walk through some different categories of AI at a very high level, a bit of the history, and then talk a bit about some AI investment opportunities and themes and some ways to evaluate investment criteria along the way. These are, obviously everything is very different depending on the companies you look at. So this is meant to be, sort of a very high level and fast overview. As Rob mentioned, happy to take questions now or at the end. And what we'll do as well, I think we'll be distributing the slides because there's definitely lots of detail here that I'll go through pretty quickly. So having said that, I think we are again at a very pivotal moment here in artificial intelligence. Obviously, we're all hearing about it in the last several months, but this has been going on for quite some time. It's very empowering to see folks like Bill Gates come out and talk so boldly about AI. The reason I mentioned this quote from Bill about how the development of AI is as fundamental as the creation of the microprocessor, the computer, and the internet and mobile phone is the fact that in March, when Bill penned this note, he said there's only been really 2 things that have blown him away in his world. One, it was seeing the graphical user interface in the 80s, and then seeing how AI is being built in the last 6-9 months. So we're really at a watershed moment here. Very quickly as well, just to kind of set the stage, there are so many ways to talk about AI, and as we all look at different companies and investment opportunities, there's very, very different approaches here. I think broadly, AI is generally organized into sort of three broad types. So the types of AI that mimic human intelligence, the types of AI that learn from and adapt to data without being programmed, and then other types of AIs that can simulate human reasoning to solve very complex problems. Again, many, many ways to break this down, but this is sort of one model that talks about 6 broad areas. You probably have heard of many of these. The first one, machine learning and deep learning, the ability for computing systems to learn from data and make their own decisions. Natural language processing and speech recognition. Of course, all of us, having used and looked at ChatGPT in the last few months, are familiar with how natural language AI can kind of look and feel. Computer vision and image processing, this is the ability for a computing system, an AI system, to make sense of images and video and detect objects in those images and then make decisions and do things based on that. Robotics and autonomous systems, of course, we're all seeing the emergence of more and more robotics, whether it's in manufacturing or further out. And we've, of course, seen lots of examples of this in the last few years. Knowledge representation and reasoning, again, this is sort of a branch of AI that helps make logic decisions, mimicking how humans think and kind of decision trees. And then finally, one that you won't necessarily see in an investment platform, but it's very, very important in this day and age. It's all about ethics, policy, and societal impact. Of course, we've seen some issues pop up with some AI things around ethical use of data training models and things like that. So I mention this one only because it's something we should all be aware of to make sure we're doing the right things well. Now, of course, in the last few months, we have all been exposed to generative AI. And it has, all of us in the AI space are very grateful, I think, for that, because it's really, ChatGPT and others have really demonstrated the true power of AI to the world and made it understandable and recognizable, and taking it out of sort of the back room where people were aware of it, but not necessarily convinced of all the different capabilities. And we've now seen some incredible innovations and demonstrations that make it easier for us investors and our clients and partners to understand how AI can be applied. This generative AI space, of course, is has been all over the news. This is a branch of AI where it's about the creation of new and novel content by leveraging sort of deep learning and generative models. This can be across text, images, music, speech, video, all sorts of things. These models tend to be trained on massive sets of data from a vast array of sources. Again, we've probably heard about a number of these: OpenAI, Bard, Stable Diffusion, Anthropic, and others. When you look at these models, GPT-2, we started working with that in September 2019 when it came out. It was trained on 1.5 billion pieces of data. GPT-3 was sort of 175 billion. GPT-4, they're sort of saying it's about 1.7 trillion pieces of data. So these data models are getting very, very large and very powerful. And that's where this generative space has really come from. So touching on that, because again, we've probably all been exposed to many of these things. As we start to think about, some more important themes around how we are as investors can think about this technology, a lot of times we see these technologies almost feel like they come out of nowhere. And often these things are talked about, a 10-year overnight success. Well, not to go into the details of all this in this particular slide, but AI has been a branch of science and computing science going back to the 50s and the work of Alan Turing and more. Lots of different waves of AI through the 60s and 70s and beyond, where different techniques were tried, some worked, some failed, but lots of fits and starts. It wasn't really until sort of the early 2010s that a few things came together to really catapult AI to where it is today. Again, we're very lucky to be in Canada here, to have two of the three sort of pioneers, what they often call the godfathers of AI, Dr. Geoffrey Hinton and Dr. Joshua Bengio, be Canadian. Yann LeCun, an American. These three gentlemen and their teams all made a variety of sets of innovations that really helped catapult AI forward. Dr. Hinton from the U of T, of course, his team had huge advancements in the ImageNet data sets and really helped computer vision, what's called back propagation and neural networks kind of get to where they are today. But one of the fundamental things that, of course, really changed with AI was sort of this perfect storm of these algorithms getting better, being able to achieve things they couldn't achieve before, the creation of the open internet with massive amounts of data now being available, and then different approaches in computing. So, of course, we've all seen the rapid rise in NVIDIA's market cap in the last little while. NVIDIA's GPU hardware powers so many of these huge large language models. For instance, the rumor is that there are somewhere between 30 and 40,000 NVIDIA GPU cards powering ChatGPT. It really was, again, this advent of this GPU or graphical processor unit that was being used for games and video rendering and things that, when applied to AI, really took the magic of these algorithms, these massive data sets, and this new kind of approach to computing, and really brought it to where it is today. Again, this is why really, we believe that AI is this massive next wave in computing. Again, not to go into all the details, but really for many of us, the dawn of the web was in 1993 when the Mosaic browser kind of dropped. I hate to date myself, but I remember I was in undergrad. I remember when that happened and seeing it in the computer lab and seeing how this was a whole new different approach. Social media had been kind of built, but really with the emergence of Facebook in 2004, we saw the rise in social media, the connection. That was another wave of computing. 2006 was when Amazon released their first simple storage service, their S3, which became the foundation of the AWS platform, this cloud computing wave. And then on the heels of that, the mobile computing wave was really, again, lots of phones had been before that, but really the emergence of the iPhone brought in the mobile computing wave. And really the AI is this fifth wave in computing. So again, from an investor perspective, we have to look at all of these things because there's different ways to invest in them. And these are, again, generalities. But when I look at this, and when I talk to a lot of people in my network about it, there's kind of, we look at the really great opportunities specific to more likely public market investment opportunities. There are lots of AI companies out there with different business models. But again, across this top here, when we kind of think about it, we put them into three broad buckets. One is applied AI, which of course is the name of this conference. In Canada, we tend to be very strong, applied AI companies. Applied AI is really all about applications that are built that use core AI technologies on real world problems, where this AI dramatically improves productivity, output, yield, processes, things like that. So it's all about taking this amazing technology and applying it to a business problem to create output and improvements. Sort of adjacent to that are enterprise AI applications. Now, these are the applications where AI is enhancing an enterprise's core systems with artificial intelligence. That often takes into account, maybe it's external data models, but it's also really using internal, private, or corporate data in a unique way that solves problems for an enterprise, and again, can improve their internal yields. These tend to be very specific applications that help an enterprise do more, be more productive, finances to problems they couldn't find in the past, but really focused around improvements for an enterprise. And then vertical AI. Vertical AI is a whole segment where it's applying AI to a particular industry vertical or a vertical solution. And by doing that, that focus on a vertical dramatically improves success and adoption of a technology or a solution, and really gets huge outcomes in a vertical. That vertical might be sales enablement, might be marketing, might be manufacturing, might be energy. There's so many of them. But by having a focus on a core vertical, you get tremendous benefits out of these AI platforms. From an investment thesis, really see those sectors as being the ones that are closest to actually producing and are producing real business outcomes. And we really like those. The other examples on the bottom row here, they're not bad at all. They're by no means, and I wouldn't say avoid them. They tend to fall into different categories. There's tons of great AI companies that are doing deep core research and development. These are sometimes science experiments. They do tend to be longer time horizons before they become, commercialized products. It might be many years, 5 to 10 years, and they often can be the realm of more traditional private venture capital or private equity investors. They might begin investing in core algorithms, building things out again that won't see the market for many years. We are, of course, also seeing tons of these ChatGPT bolt-ons, being able to take ChatGPT or these other large language models or other generative AI technologies and being some kind of a bolt-on that just leverages those platforms entirely. There are some fantastic companies, there are fantastic services using these technologies. But having said that, what we're already seeing in the few short months since, say, ChatGPT has really been in market, we're already seeing these services being replicated or absorbed or copied by OpenAI, the builders of ChatGPT, Google, Microsoft, others that really kind of absorb or render startups obsolete, in a couple of weeks because they're simply adding the functionality to their core platform. There's intense competition in these parts of markets, again, because there tends to be low barrier to entry. We're seeing, people that aren't even deep software developers building interesting services on ChatGPT in a weekend. Those are types of things that don't have a huge competitive moat. Great services, but they maybe aren't sustainable businesses to invest in. If you're interested, there's a great website called there'sanaIforthat.com that tracks the emergence of all of these different platforms. When I first looked at There's an AI for That back in January, there was 800, 900 companies. There's probably over 7,000 or 8,000 now, and it's growing like mad. So it makes it a very competitive space. And then finally, we do also often see sort of these bandwagon AI strategies where there are companies that have traditionally had nothing to do with AI that sort of tack on AI to what they're doing. They often have little to no true AI capabilities or resources in the company. And that can be a risk from an investor standpoint. These are people that are trying to take advantage of a trend that, again, may not have a long-term sustainable competitive advantage in that market from an AI perspective. So what does this all mean? Well, some key considerations. AI, as much as it has been around since the 50s, really we're still in early innings in this. There's plenty of upside, plenty of new opportunities in the space. From an investor perspective, I'd always say, the path to revenue for a company must be very clear. There are some companies that have significant growing revenue, but many still don't, and I think that's very much okay. There's still lots of early entrants into this market. There's tremendous value derived by the quality of the AI team on board at a company. In the early days, in the 2012 to 2015 AI adoption wave, companies were being bought and sold simply by the number of PhDs they had on their team. That's not really happening anymore, but really the quality of the team can still drive tremendous value. So something to look for. And again, there are growing numbers of opportunities for strong consolidation acquisition in the space. So we see the space growing and growing and growing like crazy, but still there's going to be a ton of M&A activity, which again is huge upside for investors. Really brief on Wisr, because I'm just doing an example on this, just very quickly, because it's not a commercial for Wisr, but what we do is we take mass amounts of global data. We look at dark web, news, social media, all sorts of other data, and we give enterprises the predictive capability to get ahead of cyber attacks before they happen. We use generative and other AI systems to predict risk scores for enterprises and their vendor networks. This is in massive demand by management boards and other teams because risk models from a couple years ago don't work anymore. We provide the signals to help enterprises understand which of the vendors they have to worry about, which ones they have to do things about, how to patch things well in advance. So we give this future-looking view. And we have a very efficient go-to-market through reseller channels, and we're in very advanced discussions with some huge companies to bring our product to market to their existing channel marketplace. The reason I bring this up is to give a good example. From an investor perspective, one of the questions you'll often have to look at is how do I evaluate how much proprietary IP exists in applied AI companies? And one of the ways to look at this is to actually look at a large, very successful platform like OpenAI's ChatGPT. The way ChatGPT works is they have a whole bunch of very valuable data. They've got data they've licensed. They've got data they've created through human training people that feed back data into the platform. And they, in their case, mostly have scraped public data. So they've built a very valuable data set across a variety of dimensions. They've also got proprietary AI systems. They've got AI algorithms, models. They've built their architecture, training methods, and composition of data sets. And that's how we've done it at Wisr, and very similar to many, many other companies. We have licensed data. We've built our own data sets. We've got data fed by human trainers. We've got our own proprietary data. This may be, again, dark web, social news, all sorts of things, but also the way we combine this data, the way we build our own proprietary algorithms, the way we've architected our system, and the way we've trained our data all come together to make a proprietary model. So we see a lot of these type of models working in the space where there's a combination of public, private, and generated data, along with core intellectual property around custom algorithms that are all proprietary. So I'll leave this with you because this is a good way to evaluate how some companies are approaching it. And then really when you get down to it, it is very difficult because this is a big space. There's lots of technology here. So very quickly to run through some questions you can ask. And again, you'll get a copy of this deck so you can keep this and we can help you with more. When you're evaluating an AI company, some simple questions to ask are, what are your specific AI technologies that are in use, whether it's machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, et cetera, et cetera. It's very important that a company has crisp answers to that and are very clear on it. You'd want a company to explain how AI is integrated into their product or service, and a great answer, again, will typically be understandable to anybody, but also be very detailed, and they can go very deep on the technical aspects of it. Asking about what unique and proprietary algorithms exist or technologies they've developed is very important. Again, doesn't mean a company has to have developed everything from scratch. You can stand on the shoulders of lots of great technology that exists out there, but there has to be a mix of things that create something proprietary. If there's nothing proprietary, that's a true red flag. The data is very important, where a company gets their data from, how it's trained, how often it's trained is very important. Many, many AI companies, of course, are only as good as the data they have and how they build it and how they train it and leverage it. How the AI models perform is very, very important. How that's getting measured is critical. So for products that are in market, again, asking for key performance data on how the AI models are actually performing. For companies that are approaching market, AI companies typically rely on what's called back testing, where you take your AI models and you blindly test them against things that have happened in the past, and you can see how they perform. That's called back testing. And that's a very important method. And then the competitive advantage the AI platform provides. This is, of course, very, very important. You've got to be able to speak to how a company's systems and services are different and provide something that's sustainable and has a real true advantage in the market. Where to invest very quickly. There are so many segments that our recommendation here is really follow the leaders in the market. This screen here is from CB Insights, and there'll be links after the presentation that show you a bunch of places you can get this data. These are all private companies, but following where a lot of the venture capitalists are investing to kind of see investment trends can be a very, very important way to evaluate it. But broadly, there's tons of early adoption across, obviously we're seeing it in marketing, copywriting, DevOps, IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, defense and risk management, health tech, bioinformatics, screening for kinds of drugs, enterprise applications. There are just so many, but the ones that are a little slower to adopt on the longer time horizons are really around areas where there may be high risk or litigious conditions or litigious industries. You don't see AI being built into the cockpits of commercial airlines just yet. They may be being tested in defense applications in F-18s and things. Utilities and energy, government and unionized environments, often where there's a risk of job loss, that can be a real blocker in these situations. So to kind of finish everything off, some key takeaways. You can use all your analogies here. From an AI standpoint, the train has left the station, the genie's out of the bottle, the cat's out of the bag, however you want to look at it. I don't think there's any putting this back in. AI is transforming everything. This Cambrian explosion in AI is just beginning, and AI is really a true fundamental shift for almost every industry in the world. And really, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, someone that works in the ecosystem a lot, this is a great time to invest in AI, and we'll see huge upside in returns. So I'll finish there. I'm not sure if we are going to do questions now or later, but I certainly can stay on. And I'll stay on at the end for anything I can help with Q&A. But again, thanks everyone for your time. That was very probably a lot of detail very quickly, but I appreciate it.
Very good, Rob. Thank you. I know you're just scratching the surface, and I encourage you to be around for the questions. And as you said, all of the information will be available to participants in the conference. And I know that Rob also has more extensive slide work that is available and is equally as impressive. So, Rob, our thanks.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, everyone.